just got to come back, keep working. Maybe it'll go our way this week.
Returning home for a 3 o'clock game against Mississippi State. Is this a chance to correct things?
Yeah, for sure. At home, in front of everybody, it's homecoming. A lot of excitement around, so why not right now?
Is there a little something extra based on last year's score over there?
Oh yeah, for sure. We got some little chip on our shoulder going in this week because they ain't had no respect for us, so we ain't got no respect for them.
How's the quarterbacks look this week?
They look good. Everybody's looking good. We don't know who's starting right now. I know, but we don't know yet. But whoever's back there, we got faith in. So let's ride regardless.
Kind of used to that now, just not knowing who the star's going to be week by week.
I mean, it's football. We got to go out there and play regardless. We got to go play. So.
Mike, last year against Bama, the backs and tight ends caught a bunch. It looks like that kind of was the plan. But still, when you only have one catch among the guys, how does that feel, you know?
I mean, it obviously don't feel good. But like I said, we had a lot of plays that were real close to going that didn't go. So that's just football. Sometimes it's not going to go your way. We just got to come back and keep working.
Mississippi State had a stout defense last year. What do you see from that bunch this time?
They lost a lot of guys. We got a lot of young guys in there. They're going to be physical on the edge, which is the SEC. They're going to be physical every week. So just got to go out there and play. They're not going to give it to us. We got to go take it. So.
What happened in this game last year? I mean, you guys have played LSU well up here and then went down there and just didn't perform well.
I'm not sure. I don't think we were focused all the way. It's different this year. We're a lot more focused going into this week. So, and we got a chip on our shoulder this year too. So we got something to prove playing with guys.
They've got a 4-game losing streak. You guys got a 5. I mean, is it kind of maybe who takes it to the other one first Saturday? I mean, who comes out maybe most early?
Yeah, for sure. Like every week, you got to go take it. Anybody, any team can win on any given Saturday. So you just got to go out there and take it. You got to take it from them.
How's Chad and the coaching staff holding up through this?
They're good. It's a lot of energy around this week. They're trying to, like I said, we got to have a change. So it's a lot of energy around. Everybody's hyped up. Everybody's trying to get everybody going. That's why it looked a lot quicker out there today. A lot more juice out there because there's a lot more energy around.
You guys just kind of shut out the negative talk from fans, media.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't care regardless, but I don't even check it, so it don't matter to me.
Welcome in. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. today. And we let you hear audio from sophomore wide receiver Michael Woods talking about this upcoming homecoming ball game, 3 o'clock kickoff versus the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And real quick, before we get into today's show, I want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors. Let them know we really appreciate your support. Lindsay & Associates with an office location in Fayetteville, an office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below the Northwest Arkansas Mall in Fayetteville. Corey Beck's Custom Painting, residential, commercial, anything you'd like to have looking good. Contact Corey Beck's Custom Painting. And our last one, KDK's Chicken. It's at 989 Razorback Road. Go by there and see Keith and Kathy. It's your plate of love. Like they say, it's not your mama's. The best chicken and waffles. What do I say? In the South. Like that, don't you? I want to bring in my co-host, producer, the best in the business, Demetrius Demigod Johnson. What's up, my man?
Not much, man. Get ready for this big concert this weekend.
You got a lot going on, but so does Arkansas. How important is it? We heard from sophomore wide receiver Mike Woods on the importance that they come out and play with emotion. Feels like the team is still, the morale's really, really good. Also, too, feels like there's a little bit of revenge heading into this weekend's homecoming game based on how they were treated last year, latter part of the game, and Mississippi State had continuously thrown the football, I do believe. So, what's up? What you thinking about? Is it KJ? Is it John Stephen? I mean, how are things? It's the $1 million question.
You know what I want to see
all the time.
You know who I want to see, man? I got to see KJ. You know, I think KJ brings that spark. He's that missing piece that we need as far as what we're looking for in a quarterback. I know we don't have the line that we would like for him to go out there and perform, but I think that's what's going to raise KJ's level, knowing that he's seen what the offensive line offers to the table and brings to the table from a blocking standpoint. So I think he's going to utilize that to the best of his ability and capitalize. I think his athleticism is going to make up for the lack of talent around him at the offensive line position.
when you look at it, though, the offensive line, maybe not to the standard of what most SEC teams tried out each and every Saturday. But this offensive line has made some strides, albeit it's very, very, very young. And I know people, you hate to hear that each and every week. This is a young football team because, I mean, being in the media, I get tired of saying it. But it's a reality. I mean, this is a virtually a young offensive line. A lot of these guys hadn't played a lot of football outside of Ty Clary, and you just lost Colton Jackson, a guy that's been a mainstay on the offensive line as a fifth-year senior. He steps away. So, for the most part, this is a developing offensive line. Each and every game, each and every rep, they've been able to, for the most part, I'd say, Demetrius, play some winning football. I would have to say. I mean, I think, Rakeem's around about, he's one of the top 3 or 4 rushers in the conference. Hadn't had a lot of sacks this year. A lot of the bad play you just have to put on the quarterback. I mean,
I put it on the quarterback, but I think it's just the comfortability from the quarterback. I can't speak on the interceptions that Starko has, because I think some of those were just bad decisions and poor reads. But when you look at it, I just think when you look at both Ben Hicks and Starko, they just look very uncomfortable in the pocket, and I think that's due to a lack of confidence in your offensive line. Not saying that the offensive line did a terrible job, but I just think there wasn't a great amount of trust in that offensive line to where guys were dropping back and felt comfortable, taking a 3 to 5 step drop and having time. Because when you look at these defensive lines that some of the team's been facing this year, they've been facing some tough defensive lines. When you look at Auburn, that's the top. They're going to be going up against LSU. They just went against Alabama a week ago. So, it's going to be interesting to see, again, how KJ maneuvers and uses his athleticism to his best of his ability.
And I have to, before we get on to our guest real quick, I want to, one of our viewers, and a very, very well-respected viewer, because, he's been riding from day one. Mr. Terry Roy says, if KJ gets in and underperforms, would y'all say it's coaching, or that it isn't getting these guys up to par?
You want me to start off with that?
Yeah, I want you to take
I think it goes back to coaching, because you put KJ in a tough situation. Chad Morrison has been talking about all year how he didn't want to put KJ in a tough situation, and I think you set yourself up to put him in that very situation, because I felt like KJ should have got some of those earlier reps in those San Jose's, those Portland States. Those were the games that KJ should have got some of his earlier reps to actually see what he can do. Now you throw him into a hostile environment and you give him, homecoming. A lot of people want to win this game. You haven't won an SEC game. Right. You're losing. You need to get a big win to keep your job. People are calling for your job. So I think the very thing that Chad Morris was trying to prevent, as far as what he was saying, why he didn't want to play KJ, I think it fell right into that hand, and now he's in the pressure. But again, I think KJ is a different type of breed, to where he likes that pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, and he looks for opportunities to create a name and a reputation, because he looks around the conference. You really made me pay attention to that. He looks around and sees how many freshmen are starting at SEC teams, and this guy was ranked ahead of quarterbacks that played in the same state as him, and he had more numbers and rushing yards. I know it's a different level, but as a competitor, I think he takes that as a challenge to say, man, if these guys can do that, and I had better stats, I know that I can come in this league and perform.
I've been one of the guys, I thought, maybe the red shirt year, but I always felt like 4 games, didn't know how they would, perform that 4 and get him, some game film, because I do think that going into next year with the situation that they have at quarterback, you don't want to give him a whole bunch, but you don't want to give him not enough. I think a big-time play caller will be able to look at KJ, and you've had him all through fall camp. You've had him, 8 games into the season. You watched him do a lot of the scout team work, pretty much be the scout team quarterback each and every week. So now you can start catering things that are going to fit KJ, and then understand the personnel that he's going to have around him. And you got to start catering that. You got great running backs, Devois, Rakeem. I think they're going to play. I really believe, with it now coming out, that Chase Hayden will be redshirting the remainder of the season. He's only played 4 games. I really think there's more to that. I think Chase is going to be moving on. I think you'll see number 24, Monte Spivey, another true freshman. So now when I think you're going to start seeing the RPO element come up, because that's going to be something KJ's really good at. I think give KJ enough to eat and get him full. You know, don't try to put too much on his plate. He understand. Let him realize he has those wide receivers out there in Traylon, Mike, Cheyenne, Trey Knox, Coylin Jackson, Tyson Morris. You know, those type of guys where I think you might go to a little more of the quick game and let these guys, because you got to think about this. These are some big wide receivers and these are some very shifty running backs. And I'm pretty sure all of them coming out, or at some point, Raheem Devois and Amante played a little wide receiver in their backgrounds. And then, you know, like I said, with adding KJ, I think Hudson Henry's another guy that you're going to be able to see. So add some more toys out there and really let KJ start getting acclimated to what he's going to be doing. I've had a chance, really, Demetrius, and then we'll have to get on with our guests, but I've watched his demeanor a lot during this season in his red shirt here, these first 8 games, and watched how he is around the sideline. You know, been very impressed, and he's real calm. Each and every time there's an offensive timeout, I see number 13 inside that huddle, and he's just not there around the huddle. He's inside the huddle, and that lets you know that he's starting to absorb it. So I think you got 4 games. You put him in here. It's a home state school that he'll be going up against. So I think even more with that being said, now you know he's really going to come in here and be focused.
Hey, we got a comment from Red Lindsay. He says Club Dub opening up this week. It's been a while, man. I think I thought it was out of business for a while.
I'm like this. It's not about me, nor is it about us fans. And if Club Dub is something that these kids work toward and they understand, if I win, this is what's going to happen, you got to do it. If that's the motivational factor, and they've been beaten. Let's put it out there. But, man, it's about these kids. It's about these kids, and if that's something that they like to do, we never know what kid or prospect really likes that type of stuff. That's not that. I mean, I understand Club Dub is something that maybe the entire team came up with. So if it's open, it's open. You hope it is. If it's open, that means you got
what I think he was saying is it needs to be open.
It definitely
he wants Club Dub to be open because when Club he's saying I hope Club Dub is open this week. You know,
I got you.
So I think guys want to see that atmosphere. They want to see the Razorbacks happy. Guys don't want to, see them coming in the locker room with their heads down every week. Guys like to see the enthusiasm behind the team because when the Razorback wins, the state of Arkansas wins. We talk about that all the time, how business revolves around the state of the football. Even when you talk about the energy of basketball season, if the football season usually doesn't go in good, the fan base already kind of has a lot of negativity going into basketball season. So football is just the heartbeat of the state of Arkansas, and we want to see him do great.
Well, real quick, I know we caught up with Dalton Wagner, sophomore offensive tackle. We'll hear what he has to say, but real quick, let's get our lineup set up. Pretty much, we always talk about big games of the week. We're going to talk a little ahead. We talked a little East yesterday with Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. There's a big cocktail party going on. We got his side from the Bulldog side. We're going to take it up at 1:30 and talk to Gators breakdowns. David Waters, we're going to get his side. But there's also a big one that's going to be taking place in the West, outside of the Arkansas-Mississippi State game. There's none other bigger SEC West matchup than will be taking place down in the Plains with Auburn and the Ole Miss Rebels. So we're going to talk at 1:15 with Jared Redden of the Mississippi, and we'll get that take and just see the pulse. They've had an off week down in Oxford. We'll find out, how things are going to be going. But let's get it started. The bus is ready. I'm ready. D's ready. We'll be back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479.
Mike was just
Let's
over there
get it.
saying there was a different energy in this practice today from like last Tuesday. Did you sense that, and why?
Just a sense of urgency. It's a whole new season in November. We got 4 games here to win and go get bowl eligible. And we got a lot of games to win. We got a lot of ground to cover, and there's a sense of urgency. And there's always been that sense of urgency, but it's a new season now. Coach Morris said new season starts today. So
Mean a little more to you than what they did last year in this game?
Oh, of course. It means a lot more, and it's still every game you try to treat it the same and everything. But they're a great football team, and their record I don't think reflects how hard they play and how well they're coached.
Charlie.
In this game last year, you guys played LSU strong, and down there just didn't play very well.
I can't speak too much on that because I wasn't in the game per se, but it's football. That's the best answer I can give you. I wasn't really in the game that much. I only got in a couple snaps.
What do you think they're going to
They're very big up front. They're well coached. and I mean they're fast too. They can really attack the ball, and they're going to be coming after us this week.
What are the keys for you guys to have successful offensive production against them?
Low pads in the run game, pass game, balance, footwork, all of it. I mean, we need to make sure our pads are lower than their pads are, and we just got to move them off the ball.
Is this a game against two teams with both their backs against the wall?
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479. And Arkansas plays in a big SEC West matchup, but there's also another big SEC West matchup. It's going to be taking place down in the Plains as the Ole Miss Rebels will be traveling to take on the Auburn Tigers. Ole Miss coming off a big off week. I think that they were needing coming off a loss with the A&M Aggies. So we thought we'd catch up down in Oxford with our good buddy of the Daily Mississippian, Jared Redden. JR, welcome back to OTH, my man.
Hey, thank y'all for having me. How you doing today?
Doing real good. Let's talk a little Ole Miss football. Jared, coming off an open date, having lost a real heartbreaking home loss there to the A&M Aggies 2 weeks ago. What's the temperature down in Oxford heading into Saturday's ball game down in the Plains?
Well, I mean, I guess if you're speaking literally, it's gotten pretty cold down here lately, but it's also kind of gotten a little bit cold really on the football side of things too, just a little bit. I mean, obviously this past bye week was really much needed considering all the injuries that were suffered in that A&M game. Jerrion Ely had concussion symptoms, went through concussion protocol, but he should be good to go this week. John Rice Plumlee, who actually had a little hidden knee injury. He was on crutches the past week, and he was limited earlier this week in practice, but might be able to go to this one. But speaking of John Rice Plumlee and the whole quarterback situation, I wouldn't say it's a circus, so to speak, but there's a lot of question marks really surrounding that position. You know the saying that if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Well, that's kind of really remained the same. We thought after that Missouri game a couple weeks ago, where Ole Miss was always just nipping at their heels after a disastrous third quarter in that game, where where Matt Corral and John Rice Plumlee, they not only alternated series, but alternated within the same drive, and they engineered a couple good drives in between the two of them to really catch up to Missouri. Although defensively, they had to run into a guy like Kelly Bryant, who's obviously one of the more talented quarterbacks in the SEC. And a lot of Ole Miss fans, and even Ole Miss themselves thought, well, maybe this was going to be a key to success against A&M team, which may not have the best defense in the SEC, but have talented players to become one of the better ones. Right. And so, of course, in the week, that was the biggest question mark is who's, going to be that guy. Ole Miss needs to find an identity already. Who is it? And, of course, Rich Rod was like, I'm not going to tell any of y'all, because, we want to play the hot hand, when we need to, and they tried to do that last week, but they weren't able to find a rhythm in between the two of them, really establish what they're trying to do. Of course, Rich Rod last week, when asked about the play calling, he's like, yeah, I need to do a job better at play calling. But at the same time, we shot ourselves in the foot, and they did. And that was a big difference in the A&M game. Ole Miss played their hearts out. There was probably one of the better atmospheres, home atmospheres of the season, by far. But it's just unfortunately, the turnovers weren't abundant in many, but they came at the absolute worst possible time, and it really came back to haunt them. And on that final drive, it just goes to show that you can't turn the ball over key situations to win big games. But defensively, they kept Ole Miss in the game, and Ole Miss has really kept Ole Miss in the game really each year. You go back to the loss at Memphis, and go to the loss at Cal, and then you go to the loss at A&M. One of those 3 touchdowns that A&M scored was a defensive touchdown, so that wasn't on the defense. Right. One late in the half, and then one that iced the game late in this one. So almost defense there, but offensively, Ole Miss has to find an identity, and they have to really figure out and try different things because Scotty Phillips, the obvious number one choice, all season long, it's been really quiet the past couple weeks. People are questioning why isn't he getting enough touches. Jerrion Ely has shown a flash or two, but haven't really been given enough. The receiving game. Is a big thing too with Elijah Moore. He has 600 yards receiving, but that's more than the next 4 receivers combined. Right. Because the next leading receiver, Jonathan Mingo, having about 100 yards. So you got to try different things. What better opportunity to do that against a really good a good defense and one of the more talented defenses in the SEC in Auburn.
Now, when you look at Auburn kind of comes in with what I consider one of the elite defenses. I agree with you on that, Jared. But I also want to talk about some real concerns when you look at Auburn on the offensive side of the football. They're coming in under Bo Nix, a true freshman that's had some struggles on the road, and I recall, at Florida, at just this past weekend down at Death Valley with LSU. Talk about what the defensive staff there at Ole Miss, they feel like they can capitalize on when they go on the road and maybe try to steal one, because at the same time, there are still a lot of offensive question marks when that Auburn offense is concerned.
Oh yeah, without question, Bo Nix, has a lot of upside. I watched him in high school. In high school he was just cool, calm, and collected, and he's been somewhat cool, calm, collected at times this year. You go back to that clutch play at the beginning of the year when they faced Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. Am I correct on that?
Right.
It was Oregon, right? Okay, yes, it was. And so he showed flashes here and there, but it just comes down to the growing pains. New numbers speak for itself. I mean, the completion percentage isn't exactly where it needs to be at 53%. With the 12 touchdowns, and the passer rating, it's really not that bad.
Right.
He's efficient with what he can do with it, but also he has a lot of weapons around him to where they don't really have to rely on Bo Nix. You look at the ground game, which Auburn, if you think of Auburn, you think about a ground game almost every year. With all the stuff that Gus Malzahn, that offense has been able to do with the ground game. Like Jatarius Whitlow and Cam Martin, they're two leading rushing this year. Ole Miss has been off and on in the rushing game this year. The passing game was a pleasant surprise this year with Ole Miss defensively. But the run game, it's been kind of hit or miss for Ole Miss this year. It just depends on what style. Against Arkansas, that's let them know that that this defense could keep us in the game all year long. And then it gets a really good running back in Lakeem Boyd.
Right.
But when you run an offense like Auburn, that's so fast, and they execute it with pinpoint accuracy, just more so than a lot of teams in the country, that's going to give Ole Miss fits. In Auburn's running attack, I mean, even the past couple years, the last year's meeting with Ole Miss Auburn, Ole Miss just couldn't have an answer, especially with the yardage that they gave up on some of those big plays on third down last year.
Talking with Jared Redden of the Daily Mississippian, covering all Ole Miss Rebels football and all game keys, breaking it down for us as the Ole Miss Rebels travel down between the plains to take on the Auburn Tigers. But Jared, we got about two and a half minutes left in the segment, and I need to hit on some things. First, what's the health status of the Ole Miss Rebels? I know with the off week, sometimes coaches get some players back, some that through evaluation on the off week won't be able to make it. What's that situation? And then give me your offensive player, defensive player, and your final score of Ole Miss versus, I believe, the 13th ranked Auburn Tigers. Or no, I think they're 11th this week.
They're somewhere in there. Yeah, I think 11th, I think. But anyways, it was very fortunate that Ole Miss had the bye week in the way they in the area that they did. Against A&M having all those injuries. Like I talked about, Jerrion Ealy, John Rice Plumlee, two minor injuries, but coming back from that one. Losing Mono no-go at the beginning of the year was obviously a big thing, but they've really stepped up, especially with Jaquez Jones and Lakia Henry stepping up at linebacker. Offensive line's a big issue when it comes to injured. Now, they've had to shuffle a lot, and that's going to be the biggest thing to come haunt them probably this Saturday against Auburn. Offensively, I kind of want to see what Scotty Phillips and Jerrion Ealy do this week, because, need to find a guy to establish that success in the ground game. Need some receivers to step up with John Domingo and all that. The quarterback situation, that's to be determined. Defensively, the defensive line, and once again, those linebackers have been very key this year in placing moments to no-go. Like I talked about Jaquez Jones and Lakia Henry, but Nito Jones, like I talked about almost the whole year, is just that anchor in the defensive line, Josiah Cody and Takir Tisdale. Those are one of the guys to watch out defensively. As far as the final score of this one, I feel like Ole Miss can keep in it at times, but I don't think that they're going to do it quite enough in this game. So if I had to put a final score, I'd probably say Auburn 31, Ole Miss 14.
Hey, Jared, as always, nobody does it the Ole Miss way for us here. Better than you, my man. So thanks for taking time out on the hill, my man.
All right, thank y'all for having me. We'll see y'all. Bye-bye.
That was Jared Redden of the Daily Mississippian, covers the Ole Miss Rebels, and gave us his take as they travel down to the Plains to take on the 11th ranked Auburn Tigers under Coach Gus Malzahn. But we're going to step away real quick and keep on going. We got to gas up because we got to get to the swamp. We're talking with the Gators breakdown. David Waters, he's up next. Time to talk about that cocktail party. And before that, we caught up with junior outside linebacker Hayden Henry. We'll see what he has to say about this upcoming homecoming matchup with Mississippi State. And then it's time to talk a little more SEC football. All that's coming up. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Let's get it.
A lot of juice this week. Coach Morris is fired up. We're excited to get back in our home stadium and play a big SEC game at home, and looking forward to getting back on the field.
What are you seeing out of Mississippi State running backs, quarterback?
Obviously, a really good running back. Leads the SEC in rushing. Very dynamic player. True freshman quarterback who's done a good job managing their offense, and a lot of older guys up front, a couple seniors, a few juniors, real big offensive line, and they do a pretty good job getting movement and getting on their assignments. And so it's gonna be tough. We're gonna have to play our best, and they're gonna try and play their best. So we need to match that.
He's talked about trying to play some of the young ones. So you feel like your brother's getting about ready to get in the field.
Yeah, he sure has. He's changed quite a bit from this week to the start of the season. He's kind of figuring out what it takes to play at this level. What it takes to be a successful tight end in this league, and I'm excited. I hope he gets a shot on Saturday. I think he'll prove a lot of people right, I guess.
There's a lot of talk about it's another game. Just kind of got to forget about everything else, move forward. But how much as what happened this season, is this an opportunity to just kind of let everything go?
Yeah, I mean it's always next week. I mean we got to focus on Mississippi State. We can't look in the rearview mirror and think about what happened against Alabama or Auburn. We got to get guys ready to play and get them ready to play Mississippi State. I mean we're coming off a couple losses and
welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio, coming to you each and every day here on KDSJ 479 from 1 to 2 p.m. And real quick, before we get on with our featured guest upcoming, we want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors, with that being Lindsay and Associates, Locomotion, Corey Beck's Custom Painting, and my favorite, KDK's Chicken. But we're going to continue on as we've gassed up and got to the swamp. We got a big cocktail party that's going to be taking place in the state of Florida, Jacksonville, the destination. But there's two sides to every story, and we talked with UGA Sports, Jake Roos, and got the dog side of it. So what? Yeah, we're in the swamp for a reason. We caught up with our good buddy, Gators Breakdown, David Waters, to get the UF side. D-Dub, welcome back to OTH, my man.
Thanks for having me again, Pat, ahead of this big game.
Man, the cocktail party means so much to SEC football, David. I posed the same question to Jake Roos of UGAsports.com. And for those that tune in and maybe not be so aware of this rivalry, could you explain a little bit about it from the Florida side, the passion of the world's largest cocktail party, Georgia versus Florida?
Well, I mean, of course, I think you have to go back to just how much it meant to Steve Spurrier. And he didn't beat Georgia while he was a player at Florida. Florida had their best chance in 66, and Spurrier didn't forget that. So it held Spurrier from winning an SEC championship and losing to Georgia that year. And lo and behold, he becomes a Florida head coach, and made it his mission to beat Georgia. So, this rivalry, it spans since the 30s of playing in Jacksonville. I'm glad the game stayed in Jacksonville for at least a few more years. Hope it stays that way. But, it's just unique. There's nothing else like it. When you come down here and the stadium's 50-50 and everybody's, doing the gator chomp or barking like a dog, there's nothing else like it. I hope it stays in Jacksonville. I hope it stays that way. But look, this is Florida's biggest in-conference rival, and there's on fan bases, or the fan base is split. If it's FSU or Georgia, the biggest rival for Florida, but in the conference, in the SEC, this is the game it all boils down to.
I mean, coming off an open date, let's really get off into this big SEC East matchup, because I think there's so much riding on this ball game. You guys get this ball game, and then you got two of the remaining three in Gainesville. But with your home, and then you have Vanderbilt, Missouri there to wrap it up. Florida State, you have to give the hands up to on that game. Talk about this game from the offensive side of the football. When you look at this Georgia defense, what must Florida do on Saturday to give them their best chance to come out on top in this cocktail party in 2019?
Well, Pat, the team that's run the ball the best has won 13 straight in this game, and that favors Georgia. But to me, for Florida to win this game, yeah, they're going to have to run the ball, but I don't think it's going to come down to that from Florida. It's going to come from Kyle Trask in this passing game. This deep receiver core from Florida. Georgia can be had on some deep balls here. We saw it when Ryan Helinski was actually healthy. When South Carolina and Georgia played in the one loss for Georgia this season, they were able to hit some downfield passes. Tennessee was able to hit some passes there as well, where Maurer making his first start there against Georgia. So the type of defense, they keep things in front of them. They're really, really fast. They can fly to the ball. You're not necessarily going to beat them east and west a whole lot. And Florida's gotten better pushing the ball down the field with Kyle Trask and this deep wide receiver core. Go back to when Notre Dame and Georgia played, and Georgia's tight end Notre Dame's tight end Cole Kmet abused Georgia. 9 catches, 108 yards, and 1 touchdown. Well, look, I mean, Kyle Pitts, you can put him up there with one of the best tight ends in the nation up there for Florida. He's one of 10 tight ends to post a 100-yard game this season. He's ranked 3rd in the country for tight ends with 35 receptions and 10th in yards with 391, and he's a big weapon out there. So, look, Georgia knows that too. They're going to scheme probably to take Kyle Pitts away, but Florida's so deep at receiver. You'll get Kadarius Toney back this week. So, you're going to have to run the ball a little bit to keep that Georgia defense honest. But I think Kyle Trask is just going to have to continue to play well and get the ball downfield to this deep wide receiver core.
Now, we all know when we talk Georgia offense, we think Jake Fromm and that big offensive line. I mean, a little inexperienced at wide receiver, but very proven running backs there in the backfield. Mr. Zuniga is back at the defensive end spot for this very nice set of defensive players there at Florida. Talk about what Florida has to take away, and in your opinion, what's the biggest matchup in this ball game, David, to decide who's going to win or lose this cocktail party and kind of take the lead step as the SEC East favorite?
Now, it is going to come down to stopping DeAndre Swift for this Gators defense. That is the matchup of the game. They're not going to stop him, but how much can they limit him? I think that's the big question here. He's going to get his yards. He's too good not to get his yards, but you're going to have to limit him somewhat and put Jake Fromm in some 3rd and long situations. And Florida did that a good bit last year in this game, but Jake Fromm was so good and his wide receivers were so good going against a defense that was hampered without C.J. Henderson, Marco Wilson last year. Well, this Florida's defense is going to come in into this game this year. They're going to have those corners back. They're going to hopefully have a healthy Jonathan Grenard and Jabari Zuniga coming back. But Swift is the guy to stop. I mean, averaging almost 7 yards a carry so far this year, coming off of a Kentucky game where he ran the ball 21 times for 179 yards there. Like I said, he hurt Florida last year, especially kind of sealed the game late there. And Florida's coming off 2 games in a row, Pat, where they haven't really looked good in stopping the run. 218 yards LSU gained on them, 217 yards South Carolina gained on them. But before that, Florida was defending the run, pretty good, 435 yards in the 5 games before that. So, something's got to give here. Florida needs to get back to their run-stopping ways, and it is asking a lot to do that against Georgia.
An 8-week grind, and then it falls upon an open date for both Florida and Georgia. When you look at that, I mean, it's what each and every college coach in the country and staff, they start to plan for. Maybe players that hadn't played to this point that, were younger guys, coaches had a chance to work with, maybe get some small packages in with the, 4-game allotment for these freshmen. Are there going to be any new players that that maybe people that check out the game on Saturday might see that they haven't seen? And, are you expecting any more wrinkles either schematically on defense or offense, David, in your opinion, that maybe fans need to also keep an eye out for?
There won't be any new players, Pat, in this big of a game. You kind of are who you are at this point right now in the season. Maybe one player we haven't seen a whole lot of, but he's getting better as the season goes on, is Jacob Copeland, who had the best game of his career in Florida's last game at South Carolina. Had a touchdown catch in that game there. So Jacob Copeland, maybe he's a receiver coming around and just added to this already deep Florida wide receiver core. He's a redshirt freshman there, a really highly touted recruit there. So one of the better playmakers that this Florida wide receiver core has. But it was more about for Florida getting injured players back. So as I mentioned, Grenard, Zuniga will play, are coming back. Kadarius Toney's coming back after getting hurt in the second week of the season. And I always point out, too, when we're talking about Kadarius Toney this week, we're used to seeing Kadarius Toney with Felipe Franks.
Right.
We haven't seen Kadarius Toney with Kyle Trask. So what new wrinkle, what is something that we'll see, not only because of the bye week, but because, we haven't seen that pairing yet. So, Felipe Franks had to rely on Kadarius Toney a lot in the screen game to help that part of his game out. I want to see if Kadarius Toney's used more down the field as a true wide receiver instead of this, gadget playmaker type, because that's what Kyle Trask excels in.
Talking with David Waters of the Gators Breakdown, talking all Gators football with David each and every week here on OTH. So we got about a minute and a half left in this segment, D-Dub, and I want you to give me your offensive player, defensive player, and the final score in the 2019 version of the world's largest cocktail party, which is the Georgia Bulldogs and the Florida Gators in Jacksonville, Florida.
Offense, I'm going to go. I mentioned it earlier. It's going to have to be Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts he is the matchup nightmare there for tight end. You can line him up closer to the line of scrimmage. You can line him out wide. He abused LSU's defensive backs a couple weeks ago there, especially in the first half of that game, going against another speedy, fast secondary here in Georgia. I don't know how Georgia's going to match up with him. Kirby Smart, gets paid a lot of money to figure those things out, so I'm sure they'll have a plan for him. But Kyle Pitts is the player to look out for. On defense, I think Amari Burney. They can line him up at linebacker. They can line him up at the nickel star position. He's going to be the guy, I think, if you want to spy DeAndre Swift some type of way. Amari Burney's going to be that guy that can do it. He's big. He's fast. Not as fast as Swift, but you can line him up there and try and take away there. He can play the outside runs and stop.
When Georgia and Florida get together, as it is each and every year. I mean, I grew up watching this rivalry, and like I said, if it lives up to what I've always seen, we got ourselves a good one. But we caught up with, I believe, senior defensive tackle T.J. Smith. We'll get his take on this upcoming ball game, his last game being a senior, and then you're gonna come back. And if you want to talk to Demetrius or myself or got any questions, we're here for you. It's the last segment. Also, too, want to make a note. Arkansas and Coach Mike Neighbors, that came out, the AP poll, and the University of Arkansas women's basketball team comes in as the number 22 ranked team in all of college women's basketball. First time they've opened up a season in the top 25 since it goes all the way back to 2002. So congratulations. Also, too, tonight, the 22nd ranked women will be hosting in their last and final exhibition game before they get it underway. Be taking on Oklahoma City. Tip off at 7 p.m. at Bud Walton Arena. We'll be there on site for all coverage. We'll have post-game interviews with Coach Neighbors and the respective players that they bring into the media room. But want to get off, here's TJ, and then want to talk, got questions. It's your time. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. Back in a bit.
How significant is this game? Just big picture for you guys.
Man, SEC West, every game's a big game. We're excited to get out here and play. Get go against these guys. We're excited.
I don't know a better way to put it other than this is viewed as a competitive game. Just going into this, so what do you see down in Mississippi State? What are you going to take them down?
Well, I mean, they're a good football team. I mean, obviously, we saw that last year. They're a good football team. They're always pretty good up front. They were really good up front last year. They got the SEC leading rusher right now. And they can run it with running back and quarterback. They love the run game. And the run game for them sets up the passing game.
And they've got a freshman quarterback. How's he similar to the guy they had last year?
He will use his feet. He will use his feet. He's different in the way where they do trust him to throw the ball a lot. Different from how it was last year. You know, it was a whole lot of run, not a lot of pass. They do trust him to throw the ball.
Just the running back. What do you see from him?
I mean, he's a good player. He's a really good football player. He's an SEC leading rusher for a reason, and they're good up front. They work well together.
We talk about it every week, but just how much do you guys really need to win to kind of try to right this ship?
I mean, it's huge. It's huge, especially at this point in the season. It's huge. You know, getting a win, just starting off with one, just to turn it around. It's a big deal. Go out here and get a win.
With the loss last year, how important is this game?
Welcome back. It's our Wednesday edition of On the Hill with Pat Jenkins Sports Talk Radio. As we just let you guys hear our last segment, as we spoke with David Waters of the Gators Breakdown to get his take on the Florida-Georgia big-time SEC East matchup, top 25 matchup of two really good programs that are playing. I mean, a lot at stake in that East matchup with those two teams, as the winner's going to have an edge as to who's going to make its way to the Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta to represent the SEC East. And then prior to that, we had on Jared Redding of the Daily Mississippian and got his 4-1-1 as the Rebels will be going down to take on the Auburn Tigers down in the Plains. We got his take to get his game keys. And go back over here to my co-host producer as we're about to close this thing out. And we have some more media responsibilities that we have to get to. We always got to stay on the scoop. Yes, we can't give it to you if we're not there. But real quick, looking around, and Demetrius, I made a statement. Today, I'll continue to make that statement. I really feel like that the state of Arkansas, in my humble opinion, needs to see Mr. KJ Jefferson take play at least 2-3 quarters of football. Not necessarily start. I'm not going to say that he has to jump out there and start right off, but I think he needs to play. Because I think this is, and I equate it to kind of being in between a doorway where you know you got to leave, but you want to stay because you know something. It might be best to leave, but at the same time, it also might be best to stay, and you just want to have a reason to get some hope to stay. I think that's where this Arkansas fan base is in the state. I think they're right there, and they don't. It's one of the greatest fan bases I've had the privilege of growing up being around and covering this program. But at the same time, I mean, it's a fan base that deserves a lot more from its football program. I mean, that's just going to put it out there. That's don't sugarcoat. And 8 to 9 years of being a mediocre football team, have some of the talent that you see. These guys that come out of this program are playing on Sundays, and then you look back and it's like, what dots aren't connecting? I think this is a situation that, KJ coming out on a football field and being able to show this offensive spark that I think Coach Morris keeps talking about will infuse hope for what the future has going forward, because now you can see KJ, Amante, Hudson, Traylon, Mike Woods, Coylan. You see all these young guys at your skill positions, and the future could be bright. I think, the remaining 4 games is what this state really is going to keep their eye on. I mean, are you right there in the same agreement before we close out this show, Demetrius? Is it something that this could be the infusion of just some positiveness out of a program that has been really negative for a long, long time?
Yeah, I just think it can change the narrative in multiple ways. We never try to make this a black and white thing, but I think it even changes the narrative as how people view Fayetteville, Arkansas. Sometimes Arkansas still get those negative connotations with being a racist town. I think just it's a different change for Arkansas. I'm not saying that he's going to win the game, but I just think it's a different atmosphere. It's going to be a different vibe. I think it's going to be a different energy. I think it's been a long time since we had a true dual threat quarterback at that position. I know a lot of people say Brandon Allen, but Brandon Allen was not a dual threat. He could run, yes, but he was not a true dual threat. Right. This is the first dual threat that we've had. History longer than me. Since who was the last true dual threat?
Probably you'd have to go back to Matt Jones. I think that would be the last dual threat.
True dual threat.
That'd be Matt Jones.
And I don't think Matt Jones had the type of weapons that KJ has when you talk about Trey Knox and Traylon Burks and Cheyenne O'Grady. I think, man, they can do some
good ones, but he didn't have the big wide receiver.
He didn't have those type of targets. So I think, man, when you add him into the game, you make people respect that box, and you make them respect the fact that the quarterback can be a home run hitter, because KJ does have speed to get in that open space and know what to do with it. So, I hope he does get his chance to show his skills to Razorback Nation. I think once he does step on that field, people are going to see why he was so highly recruited from so many other SEC schools.
And like I said, I don't want to make it all about KJ, because I think I think Amonte Spivey and I think Hudson Henry are two other real special true freshmen that I think this fan base, if they get a chance to see 24 and I believe number 84 out on the football field making some plays, I think those three young men added, like I said, with Mike, with Coylin, with Trey, and with Traylon, is really something that you can really hone in on the future. And I think if you're, also too, if you're recruiting, like if you're Dustin Fry or if you're that offensive staff, you can show these offensive weapons to some of these linemen, because that's where you're hurting, right there in those lines of scrimmage. And you can say, hey, we have all of this. If you'll come and protect all of this and play up to a high standard, there's going to be some benefit for you on down the road as far as aspirations to play at the next level, be one of those offensive linemen or those guys in the trenches that really can be held accountable for the true turnaround of this program, because I think that's where you're going to have to turn the knob at the offensive and defensive lines for the door to open for Arkansas to be one of the relevant SEC teams. Not one of the good ones, but one of the relevant teams. And I think Arkansas, with the facilities, they have that expectation, and rightfully so. They should have that expectation with some of the facilities that we've had the privilege of going around and seeing. I mean, I've seen quite a bit in my time, and these are some of the elite facilities in the SEC. So with all that being said, it's just, I think we need KJ. I think it really needs to be a youth movement. It's what I really want to gear toward. Play some of those young guys and let this fan base, especially on homecoming. I think that would mean even so much more to let this kid play against his home state school, a school that I know really recruited him, was not too far from his hometown. So, there's just a lot going on. Also, too, love to see John Stephen Jones, see if he can continue on with the momentum that he built toward the latter part of that game last week versus number one ranked Crimson Tide. But that's going to wrap up our show today, as we got to get on. We got a lot more to cover and bring you. Want to thank my producer, Demetrius Johnson. Want to thank my guests as well, Jared Redden of Daily Mississippian, for giving us the Ole Miss take. Also, too, David Waters of the Gator Breakdown. He talked about the world's largest cocktail party with us as well, gave us his take as well. Also, too, Lindsay and Associates, with an office location in Fayetteville and office location also too in Rogers. Locomotion, located just below Northwest Arkansas Mall. Corey Beck's Custom Painting. And lastly, KDK's Chicken. Go down to 989 Razorback Road, see Keith and Kathy, and get your plate of that love. Like they say, it's not your mama's, and the best chicken and waffles in the South. I like that now. In the South. And that's going to do it for tomorrow. We'll be back. It's On the Hill with Pat Jenkins on KDSJ 479. You guys have a blessed one, and let's get it.